Solid to gas is sublimation? Yeah. Gas to solid is, it's how frost is formed. It's got its own word too. Anyways. Good morning. Welcome to Sunday morning Bible study. We continue our study of Kingdom in Exile to Kingdom of Christ. We started in Daniel. We started in one kingdom. We're still in the second kingdom in the Medes and the Persians. We're seeing hints of the Greeks come. Anyways, we're in Nehemiah is where we're at. Chuck did Nehemiah 1 last week. I'm going to do Nehemiah 2 this week. So we'll go from there. I don't have any chocolate. Besides the chocolate that I hand out in class, throw out in class, sometimes the mice get into it and eat some. People are like, we got a mouse problem here? No, they're big mice. It disappears by the handful sometimes. So anyways, I need to get some more chocolate. So instead, I've acquired some canned goods from the food pantry. So I was accused that these were hot. I did not steal these. I've acquired them. So anyways, we'll try to give away canned goods today for interaction in class. Anywho, that's where we're at. Nehemiah 2, the walls of Jerusalem. The outline for today, basically Nehemiah 2 verses 1 through 8. Nehemiah goes back to Jerusalem. And then 9 through 20, he inspects the walls. That's it. It's almost like a government job. So that's what we're going to cover today. So I thought I'd get into the 3, but I stopped at 2. Nehemiah 2 verse 1, in the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, when wine was before him, I took up the wine and gave it to the king. Now I had not been sad in his presence. A lot of weird stuff in here, so we're going to kind of break it down. The months of the Jewish calendar are Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz, Ab, Elul, Tishri, Marcheshvan, Shislev, Tebeth, Shebat, and Adar. And if I'm even close to that, I did a pretty decent job. If you look online, you will find these spelled many different ways. As a matter of fact, sometimes like Iyar, the second month, with one Y. The Marcheshvan sometimes starts just a Sheshvan. I don't know. So this is what I took was considered a biblical times list of the months, of the calendar months, the Hebrew calendar. Theirs started with the month of Nisan, was the religious calendar. The governmental type calendar starts with Chislev, I believe. I think it's the first month of that one. They have a different shift in them. So, and I think our calendar that way, we start, January 1st? I don't know. We start January 1st, but I think the old time calendar started with like the first day of spring. So it's Gregorian versus whatever it is. But I think ours started like the first day of spring. That's probably what you see as a shift there somehow. So anyways, I used them in the order that the biblical people would have used. How much time had passed between Nehemiah 1, when Nehemiah first heard about the state of Jerusalem, what kind of condition it was in the month of Chislev, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes. So that's how Nehemiah 1:1 starts out, that he hears about it, in the month of Chislev, the 20th year of King Artaxerxes. So how much time has passed from chapter 1 to chapter 2? We're in Chislev, now we're in Nisan. Math guys, you have to rotate around the end. So 4 months, we'll go 4 months. The year of the king didn't change, but the year of the Hebrew year would have changed by that time. So, to keep in time of Artaxerxes versus the Jewish calendar. So anyways, that's where you get that. So it's about 4 months. At the end of Nehemiah 1, we learned that Nehemiah was the cupbearer of the king. That's just kind of how it ended, right? Last words were, I am the cupbearer. Here we see how this comes into play. Kaufman's commentary, which I used, he copied something from Jamieson Fawcett Brown. If you ever want a really neat commentary, Jamieson Fawcett Brown is typically quoted in just about everybody else's commentary. So they put together a very nice one back in the day. He washed the cup in the king's presence. He filled it with wine and poured from the cup into his own left hand a sufficient amount. Then he drank that in the king's presence and handed the cup of wine to the king. So if you ever want to know what the king cupbearer does, supposedly this is it. Chuck? He's the first to be poisoned. This is it. This is the second time Steve and I have heard about poisoning this morning. We listened to the guy's sermon earlier, and he talked about rat poison. Rat poison apparently is 2% rat poison and 98% cornmeal to attract the rats, but the poison is enough to kill them. So yeah, that's it. He fills the cup with wine. This is blackberry Merlot jelly, so this will work fine. So he holds that cup in his right hand. He pours it off in his left hand, slurps it, probably stands around a while. If he falls over, it's poison. If it's not, here you go, king. Anybody know the significance of why he pours it off in his left hand? I mean, they tell you which hand to pour it into and stuff. Is it just random, or is it a reason? It's cultural. It's cultural, basically. Anyways, yeah, yeah, that's probably it. I heard laughing, so you probably got the answer. And I won't have to say it much more than that. But
No, go ahead, Doug.
go ahead.
Expound on that.
Expound on it. Well, might as well. We might as well. When I was starting grad school, they made us take 2 weeks of teaching us how to be teachers, how to be grad assistants, and stuff like that. But most of it was for be teachers. But some of that was, FIT is the most international college, apparently. There's people from like 100 different countries that go there. So some of the cultural appropriations, they taught us, a lot of Arabs there. And so they taught us how not to offend the Arab people. Arab people don't like to look at the soles of your feet. That offends them. So you learn, okay, so we won't do this. Left hand's another thing. You shake hands with your right hand. Okay, you do not extend your left hand. As everybody laughed, that's the hand you wipe with. So that hand apparently never gets clean enough. So that's the left hand. So like that, the king's drink, the cup is filled, it's held in his right hand, it's extended to the king in the right hand. While he pours off in his left hand, it's on the cupbearer, how clean that is. So that's how I tied it back to why they probably went that direction. So there you go. During these 4 months, Nehemiah fasted and prayed about the state of Jerusalem. That's what we picked up in Nehemiah 1. How do you think he felt during this time? And what face did he let the king see? So he takes 4 months to fast and pray. What's his mental state?
He's very, almost profoundly sad.
I would say profoundly sad. Yeah.
That's his state.
That's his state. He's found out Jerusalem's never built the walls back. After all these years, they're still just crumbled. So yeah, he's depressed would probably be a good word, maybe worse than that. 4 months is a long time to fast and pray about something. So anyways, that's probably what he was in, especially when you contrast it to the fact that he's never been, he says, now I had not been sad in his presence. So he didn't let the king know that he was sad. He was sad on his time, but when he was on the job, he didn't let the king know. So, why do you think he faked it until he could make it? Why not let the king know?
He'd get another cupbearer if he didn't like it.
Yeah, that's probably true. Get you another cupbearer. The king's not happy, just find somebody else. Find somebody that makes me happy. This guy offends me. He comes in here, and he brings me down every time he comes in here. So, yeah, and they might even be worried. The guy that's been fasting for 4 months has probably lost a good amount of weight, I would imagine, too, wouldn't he? So you'd almost be suspicious that maybe the wine didn't have enough poison in it to kill him, but was making him very sick. So you might even worry about something like that. So yeah, that would be it. In Esther 4, verses 1 and 2, when Mordecai learned all that had been done, Mordecai tore his clothes, put on sackcloth and ashes, and went out into the midst of the city. He cried out with a loud and bitter cry. He went up to the entrance of the king's gate, for no one was allowed to enter the king's gate clothed in sackcloth. So you see this even in Esther. They couldn't approach the king being sad. Somebody that's fasting and praying probably would have wore the sackcloth and stuff. So it wasn't allowed, Mordecai wasn't allowed to approach the king and Esther at this time, so it would probably been the same kind of rules. It would have been a different kingdom, obviously, but same kind of rules. Or was it? Was Esther at the same time? You're right, it is, isn't it? So rules have been the same, wasn't it? So, anyways, Mordecai would not approach him that way, so neither would Nehemiah. He is right, isn't it? That's Persian king? Persian king. Might have been even the same king, huh? That's pretty good. Esther's a little different. That book is, what, they don't never mention God in the book of Esther? Is that what I've understood? God's never mentioned. It is God's people. They are, but God directly isn't. So maybe it's Ruth that, I don't know. I get those two confused. Anyways, we'll get on with it. So I think you're right. I think it's contemporary. It's maybe even the same king. Nehemiah 2, verses 2 through 3. And the king said to me, "Why is your face sad, seeing you are not sick? This is nothing but sadness of the heart." Then I was very much afraid. I said to the king, "Let the king live forever. Why should not my face be sad when the city, the place of my father's graves, lies in ruins, and its gates have been destroyed by fire? Artaxerxes knows about Artaxerxes knows about the ruins of Jerusalem. He, or the former Artaxerxes, as Chuck's pointed out, it could be one or the other, had stopped work there years earlier by commissioning Rehum and Shimshai to stop the rebuilding and the fortifying. We saw that in Ezra 4, verses 8 through 23. So the king already knows the state that Jerusalem in, the condition that it's in, because he's the one that authorized the work stoppage. Nehemiah answers his sadness in a personal manner. Basically, he says like that, "Why shouldn't I be sad? That city is the city of my fathers. It's where their graves are." That's, he takes it upon himself. How different would an answer like that be today? If this had happened in 2021, what kind of answer would you find from somebody, the king asks them, "Why are you sad?" And they know, what happened. What would their answer be more like today for most people, common people? Let me put it that way. Chuck? What's that? Yeah, the king would have probably said, "Get over it." You're right. Well, what about somebody like Nehemiah's place? How would their answer about why they were sad? What would that be? Would they blame it on the king? It's all your fault. Would they take it to Facebook, Twitter, InstaTwit? It could GoFundMe. There you go. We've set up a GoFundMe. Rebuild Jerusalem, $5 at a time. Things are different today. That's don't even have to go to the king. Just set up that GoFundMe and the funny thing with some of those GoFundMe, some of those things break in huge amounts of money, and some of them get nothing. Absolutely nothing. The scandal the last couple weeks in high school football with the Bishop Sycamore team. Anybody follow that scandal? ESPN puts some of the top level high school football teams on, play a game on like Friday night or Sundays maybe, I think it is. And one of the top teams in the nation, probably the top team, is IMG out of Bradenton, I think it is. They basically have an academy school. It costs you $40, $50 a year to send your kid to school at some of these places. So they only play top-notch teams in the country, and they regularly appear on ESPN. The game a couple weeks ago was, they had a game scheduled against a place called Bishop Sycamore out of Columbus, Ohio. And they won IMG won like 58-0. The big scam is they don't really know how Bishop Sycamore got on the schedule, and they're still looking at that because Bishop Sycamore may or may not be a real high school. The students on the team seem to be as old as 20 and 21 and then graduated in other places. It's a total scam. They had played 2 days earlier against some other team and got whipped. Somebody, anyway, scammed getting this fake high school on nationwide TV, and I'm sure there was money along with it. But when you start looking at this, Bishop Sycamore, was apparently even another high school a couple years ago that tried the same thing. But there's a GoFundMe in with this to try to buy uniforms and helmets and stuff like this. And they said to that team, some of the guys played both sides. They switched uniforms and helmets during the game. And anyways, it was something weird to look at. Total scam involved with that, with the GoFundMe. So total sidetrack, which anyways. Today's world is very strange. So anyways, yeah, Nehemiah's answer would have been very, very different in today's world by many accounts. Verse 4 and 5, then the king said to me, what are you requesting? So I prayed to God of heaven. And I said to the king, if it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in your sight, that you send me to Judah, to the city of my father's graves, that I may rebuild it. So what would happen if the king was displeased with Nehemiah's answer? Because it says, if it pleases the king. What if he's displeased? Chuck? Okay, at the least. No, bring me my wine. Taste that out. Yeah, at the least. At the least. Yeah. Haul him to jail. Put him in the dungeon. Somebody come over here. Just lop his head off right here. We'll have a new cupbearer in a little while. Yeah, something very, nothing good. But at the least, a no. And that would have probably ended it. Even just a no would have been, it ain't going any farther. Don't come back tomorrow. Don't come back another time and ask. Don't go to your mom. This is the answer. It's the king. Mm-hmm. No. Yeah, exactly. Without God, this ain't going anywhere. They are known for their brutality. They're known for I've already spoken on this. I've already laid down a law. Those laws, we see that with Nebuchadnezzar's laws in the previous one, in the Babylonian Empire. We see it in Daniel. The laws cannot be changed. It's no different with the Medes and Persians. Once it's been spoken, if the king is a god, you can't change laws like that. It's already been spoken. So it ain't going to go good if he's displeased. Do you think Nehemiah started his shift with intentions of requesting to go to Jerusalem and rebuild it? You think that was his idea that day, just to come in there and do that? No, I don't think so either. I know that's Chuck's answer. He just no. I don't think so. But he didn't choose to show up sad that day. It's just he was. I can't imagine that he planned it that way. It's not like some kind of psychological game. I'll go in sad. Maybe he'll ask me why, and maybe I'll get a chance. No, the consequences are too grave. Do you think he even had the skill set to rebuild Jerusalem? I mean, that's what he asked for. If it pleases you, send me back to Judah that I may rebuild it. Do you think Nehemiah even has that skill set? Do you think the king sees that, or do you think anybody sees that skill set in him? Probably not. What's that?
He knew how to pour.
He knew how to pour wine. Pour concrete. You can do, yeah, maybe it's not so big.
I don't think he had the skill set.
I don't think he had the skill set. Unless it was a former life. And it's not like he's not going to go back and mix them up some mortar, add a rock. Add some mortar, add a rock. He's not going to do it stone by stone and rebuild the place. He's asking for more than that. You're looking at a project manager. You're looking at a project engineer. You're looking at it's a big system to rebuild that thing. I can't say that he had the skill set going into it. I could see just, anybody. No, not you. Bring back more people, more plans. What do you think Nehemiah prayed for before he answered? Up in verse 4, it says, what are you requesting? And he says, so I prayed to the God of heaven. What do you think he prayed for? Chuck laughs. He's got an answer.
I can hear her since I'm back here.
The good answers are always in the back. The microphone never picks those up, and they never quite get this far. I will trade 1 jar of hot peach jelly. Hot peach jelly for a good answer right there.
That's why I'm not saying that.
I promise not to even throw it. I will just can carry a jar of hot peach jelly.
They checked them out, so
You already checked them out. Look at this. I don't mind popping tops. We got a taste test here. We'll get some spoons from the back.
Little spoons?
Yeah, get a little spoon. Pinkies up, taste it. Very refreshing.
but do you think it was the same day that he prayed to God, or did he take a week off and
Oh, I don't think he took a week off.
or day off? No.
I don't think so.
When did he have time to pray to God?
It might have been a quick one. About like when you're about to get into a car accident type prayer. Or when the hailstorm hits and you're driving, It might have been a quick one. Yeah, you're right. The stuff that I would think that he would ask for, talk to God about, would take time. Saul, for instance, on the road to Damascus, when he's blinded, and he has 3 days where he doesn't eat, he doesn't drink, and he spent that in prayer. Consider all the things that Saul prayed about during those 3 days. We don't know, but his life could have been taken by God just as much as it could have been saved. He probably had a whole lot to talk to God about. And Nehemiah might have done the same thing. He's been praying and fasting for 4 months. It might have been as simple as, now's the time, be with me. Chuck?
You really, it's obviously conjecture, but when the king asks a question, he expects an answer. He expects an answer now.
That's right.
It could have been a lag of time for him to go off and pray and then come back, but my suspicion is it was a short one. May have been for strength. It may have been for what's best. Whatever it was where he was at that particular point. He knew he was at risk, or at least he perceived he was at risk when the king asked the question. At least the king asked the question.
That's
And he asked, what are you requesting?
what are you requesting? What are you
It wasn't like, I'm sorry you're sad, which is kind of what we would say today. Say, I'm really sorry you're sad.
Because the verse before, yeah, you're right. Talk about being sad. And Nehemiah said, this is why I'm sad.
Yeah.
It doesn't request anything.
Ask for anything, but Nehemiah, but the king says, what are you requesting?
What are you
Which was
requesting?
an interesting response.
It is. We see God do that with people when he uses people like Pharaoh, people who you wouldn't even think about using. They come up with questions or answers. They come up with questions that only God could have put in their heart. The king of Persia, quite honestly, couldn't care less about why, but he asks, what are you requesting? Susan?
Well, he had 4 months to build a relationship with the king. Esther had a long time to build a relationship again with the king, enough that the king didn't just say, what's wrong with you? After he heard it, he was like, well, what do you need to make it better? That's what the question was.
That's what the question is. What do you need?
The question really was. We assign personalities to kings sometimes, maybe without all the facts. He was a person who loved. He was sort of got angry at his wife because she wouldn't do what he said, his first wife. He had a personality, and he had people that he cared for a lot because he gave special privileges to them. And you're a pretty close relationship to your person that's there every day. And they probably had, they obviously had a rapport where they talked.
Yeah.
Enough for him to know that, okay, if you're not sick, then why are you sad? So I think that it would be a natural thing for him to ask, okay, you really said, what can make you better? I do that with my kids. You're sad. What can I do to make it better? I think that they don't give us a lot of details.
No, they don't give us a
Personality, if you look at this, and if this is Esther or even the other one, we don't need to write off the fact that these people also had emotions and personalities.
That's true. That's true. And I ask questions because it's just, you're right, it's not there. But the question's worth asking is what happened? Why? And I would say in some form or fashion, whether there's like I said, the 4 months sitting there together, he's come to trust him. That's a lot of drinking out of the hand, a lot of risking his own life to please the king. God's hand in putting him there in that position, God's hand in making some kind of relationship to ask this question. Chuck's talked before generals and stuff, right? How much time do they usually give you?
Depends on how many stars they have on their shoulders.
More stars and
Less time.
less time.
And the questions sometimes get much harder.
Yeah. Because the questions become much harder because they've got the history and they've got a big pyramid of stuff under them. You appear before the king. Your answer's going to be quick, and the questions, you better satisfy what you know and they're going to ask. You're not going to be a bluff. You're going to have to spit it out. What all would Nehemiah need in order to go back and rebuild? So it says, what are you requesting? Like I said, he knows it's going to take more than one guy. What would he need? Money. Army and money, supplies. It ain't like the Walmart's right there. It ain't like McDonald's isn't open. No Lowe's. Don't go to McDonald's in Titusville late at night on a Friday night. Just don't waste your time. Anyways, but that's a side note there. There's a lot of stuff to go on 4-month journey to go do the job. You can't look it up on the internet. You can't order stuff off of Amazon. You're just going to have to. There's a lot of stuff he's going to need. Verse 6, and the king said to me, the queen sitting beside him, and that's a kind of a weird aside there in some aspects. How long will you be gone, and when will you return? So it pleased the king to send me when I had given him a time. Which way is the king leaning when he, looking at just this much of it, which way is he leaning on Nehemiah's request? He's leaning towards, yeah, go ahead, because he's already asked, what are you requesting? Now he's saying, how long are you going to be gone and when are you going to return? Question we've asked the kids many times, especially since they've had driver's licenses. When are you going to be back? Or is this just a sarcastic answer from somebody with power? Yeah, sure. And what's this grand plan really going to cost me? He asked about the time, but you can almost see that. And if you twist it a little bit, you can see that answer being, what's this that you're asking for? What's it going to cost me? Because you ain't got nothing, So that's kind of part of the question, too. How much time would you ask for? Chuck?
It's a hard one. This is like, okay, I haven't seen how bad it is.
I've only heard about it.
I've only heard about it.
I haven't been there in 70 years.
And
if at all.
Yeah, and I don't know. He hasn't promised them any resources yet.
No.
So they don't know who's going to get. So you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know how bad it is. How long is it going to take? How do you answer that question?
How do you answer the question? Yeah, if the question is, you go and do that, and I'll even give you a jar of strawberry jalapeno jelly to start your journey, I'm not coming back. The job's endless. If he gives them a supply chain for food, he gives them a lot of skilled laborers, gives them contracts for acquisition of materials. It's 4 months to get there. We saw that in Ezra. It's 4 months. It's probably farther because they're over in,
Babylon, it's not too far.
not too far. Well, from Babylon to Jerusalem is 4 months journey. So we don't consider 4 months. You know, it's 8 months if you just go there and say, get busy, and you turn back around and you come back home. It's 8 months. He's already asked. You know, he's already kind of made a request. So how long do you ask for? I mean, if you ask for 20 years, what's the king going to say? No. You know, maybe a year or two, would that be the answer you'd ask for? A year is probably not enough. A couple years? A couple years is probably what I think he would ask for. Nehemiah's first term as governor back in Jerusalem, Judah, whatever it is, lasted 12 years. I don't imagine he asked for 12 years, but it was probably asked for a couple years. Hey, work's coming along. And he probably got an extension. Even to get that message back took a while. You know, it's not like he sent an email. So that's how long it was. His first term, anyways. Picking up in Nehemiah 2, verse 7. I said to the king, if it pleases the king, let letters be given to me to the governors of the province beyond the river, that they may let me pass through until I come to Judah. And a letter to Asaph, the keeper of the king's forest, that he may give me timber to make beams for the gates of the fortress of the temple, and for the wall of the city, and for the house that I shall occupy. And the king granted me what I asked, for the good hand of my God was upon me. Besides time, what did Nehemiah need from the king?
Resources.
He needed resources. He needed a letter to let him pass through. He ain't going to get past it. He needs a letter that says he's okay to go build it. So he needs letters to the governors of that thing. Because it's not just some random dude coming through there, hey, I'm here to build the town. Beat it. You know? He needs resources. He needs letter to the guy that keeps the forest. Who would have thought there's a cool job like the keeper of the king's forest? That's a pretty cool job. To get timber to rebuild everything. And I'd imagine, I don't know, well, you're going to build it once, you might need timber later too. It's not like they got pressure tree or wood or anything, but the cedars of Lebanon, which I know is what I know they used at one time, cedar lasts for a very long time. But anyways, there might even be a resupply later. So that's what he asked for. Asked for letters and resources to build it. So Nehemiah gives full credit to God. Does not give full credit to the bank or to Visa. He gives full credit to God. The king granted me what I asked, for the good hand of my God was upon me. Again, he didn't get too greedy, really. He said, this is what I need. And verse 9, then I came to the governors of the province beyond the river and gave them the king's letters. Now the king had sent with me officers of the army and horsemen. Does Nehemiah make his journey alone? No. He probably wouldn't have made it if he tried. So, did I ask that question? No, I didn't even ask that question. Well, you can see he brings officers. If you were one of the governors, I didn't even ask that question. I thought I had it on there. Sometimes as I make the next slide, I erase what I do by accident. So it says he had sent with me officers of the army and horsemen. So who's really with him? I mean, if he's got officers of an army, it implies he also has an army, right? Why just bring the officers? He's going to have an army with him. If you're one of the governors, what would your impression be of Nehemiah? He shows up with letters from the king, and you got a full military escort. What do you think their impression is?
This guy.
I wouldn't try. No. He would. You upset him. He's already got an army with him. He's got letters from the king. The question kind of comes up later. I would think they're going to send to the king to make sure that stuff's genuine. There's some kind of seal that's probably on there that says it is, but they'll probably still question that. But yeah, with the full army, guy didn't just show up. He showed up. He showed out. Verse 10, but when Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite servant heard this, it pleased them greatly that someone had come to seek the welfare. It displeased them greatly. Did I say please? I did, didn't I? It displeased them greatly that someone had come to seek the welfare of the people of Israel. Now, my first reading through this, it's like, who is Sanballat the Horonite? What are Horonites? Who was Tobiah the Ammonite? I mean, these questions always kind of hit me. So I went to Wikipedia, because why not? I found some other sources, but this is a quick one. Sanballat was the governor of Samaria. That corresponds with other commentaries. Samaria would have included Judea. His name means sin has begotten. How would you like that name? That name is probably not on any birth records today. Sin was actually not confused with the English word sin, but the Sumerian moon god Sin. So don't take it for as much as you thought it was, but then again, it is what you thought it was too. So Horon was his family's origin. Horon was identified with the village Huwara, which is in there today on the west bank at the foot of Mount Gerizim, where the Samaritans worshipped. So the bifocals don't work so great with these little monitors this close. I hit that line, it's like, so Horon is on the foot of Mount Gerizim. And Mount Gerizim is what? Have you heard this word before? What happened? Is that where the Samaritans worshipped? I think that's where the Samaritans worshipped, is Mount Gerizim. So that's where he's from. So as a Horonite, he's from the town. His family's from the town of Horon. I thought it might even be a whole country, but apparently it's not. But that's where his family's from. And Tobiah the Ammonite, possibly the governor of Ammon, possibly of Jewish descent. He married a Judahite leader's daughter, and his son also married a Judahite leader's daughter. So he's invested in the local. He's got to where he is by marrying into power. It's kind of how he got his job. I got a couple minutes to get through this. Why do you think Sanballat and Tobiah were greatly displeased that he came to seek the welfare of the people of Israel? They saw their time kind of ending, you know. You can, if you're in power, you get a lot of benefits with that, and they could probably see that ending. 11 and 12, so I went to Jerusalem and was there 3 days. Then I arose in the night, I and a few men with me, and told no one that my God had put into my heart to do for Jerusalem. There was no animal with me but the one which I rode. So he arrives in Jerusalem, and after 3 days, he starts to examine the city. And it says he goes at night. Would you look at a destroyed city in the middle of the night? It's not like they got lights, street lights turned on. Like you got, you know, the big 1,000,000 candle power spotlight and stuff. It's a weird time to go investigate the damage that was done. So he's doing it in secret, is kind of what it is. I don't want anybody to know exactly what it is. And he went with a very small group. I went out by night by the valley gate to the dragon spring, to the dung gate. I inspected the walls of Jerusalem that were broken down and its gates that had been destroyed by fire. I got a map, and I don't know if the map, how much you can see from back there. I circled the valley gate. The valley gate would be on the southwest corner of the town of Jerusalem. And basically he would have gone from there. The dragon spring, I would assume, is between it and the dung gate, which would be on the southeast corner. So he basically went out the southwest corner and into the southeast corner, and he checks out the destruction. If I back up a thing, it says the gates have been destroyed by fire. So the wooden gates, they're ash. They're gone. They're history. So he checked out that part of it. Verse 14, then I went to the fountain gate and to the king's pool, and there was no room for the animal that was under me to pass. So he comes in that southeast corner onto dung gate, and he goes, the fountain gate is up just a little bit from there. The king's pool is in that same corner, is the area that he's looking at. It says he couldn't pass. The rocks and everything were all just, he couldn't get his horse or his donkey or whatever he's riding. He couldn't get through there. I guess archaeologically, when they've dug this up, when they rebuilt, there's a second wall. That area was so disrupted that they didn't put the second wall back in the same place as the first one. They had to actually build it in another area, in that area. Then I went up in the night by the valley and inspected the wall, and I turned back and entered by the valley gate, and so returned. So it seems to be that he went out through the fountain gate there, and he kind of goes up the east side of the town as far as he can go, up in the Kidron Valley. Is that the Kidron Valley? Valley of the Kidron. comes back down to the bottom, down south end, Valley of the Hinnom, or Gehenna, and back into the Valley Gate. Is pretty much what he did. And he sees destruction everywhere. So he checks out basically the south and east sides of the town to assess everything. Picking up 16, and the officials did not know where I'd gone or what I was doing. I had not yet told the Jews, the priests, the nobles, the officials, and the rest who were to do the work. So he's still keeping it a secret from even the people who are going to do the work. Does this seem weird? Why do you think he kept it a secret?
Trust any of them. They haven't done anything. Why should he trust them?
Haven't done anything in all these years. Yeah, haven't picked up a single rock, and the rocks are still laying there. Yeah, it's going to have to come down. They're going to have to trust him, and he's going to have to trust them. 17, then I said to them, you see the trouble we are in, how Jerusalem lies in ruins with the gates burned. Come, let us build the wall of Jerusalem that we may no longer suffer derision. King James says, ye see the evil case that we are in. I just thought I liked the words. What kind of trouble are they in? I use Kaufman's words. The physical state of the city is terrible. The shameful subservience they suffered under the Samaritan governor, their constant reproach and hatred of their neighbors, current low estate compared to their former glory. Anyways, it's more than just the walls aren't up. The neighbors are taking advantage of us. The local politicians are taking care of us. And you don't even feel any pride here. It's just we're all in bad shape. Then I said to them, you see the trouble we're in? Oh, sorry, that was the same thing. How do you think all these troubles oppressed and depressed people? You saw it. Then I told them of the hand of my God that had been upon me for good, and also of the words that the king had spoken to me. And they said, let us rise up and build. So they strengthened their hands for the good work. What was their reaction when they heard this is God's plan? What are we going to do? Let's get busy. Let us rise up. Let us build up. That reminded me of Acts 2 with when Peter tells everybody that we've been waiting for Messiah and he was here and you killed them. And their response was they were cut to the heart and they said, brothers, what shall we do? It's the same kind of thing. They're cut to the heart. Let us get busy. We got 2 more verses. 19, but when Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite servant and Geshem the Arab heard of it, they jeered at us and despised us and said, what is this thing that you're doing? Are you rebelling against the king? You can hear the music change, kind of. He gets the people of God, God's people, excited about rebuilding, but the politicians are like, no. What in the world do you think you're doing? It's king versus king, verse 20. Then I replied to them, the God of heaven will make us prosper, and we, his servants, will arise and build, but you have no portion or right or claim to Jerusalem. The governor sent something immediately back to the king. And they probably freaked out when they got the answer that said, yeah, that's what I want. And the same kind of thing in Acts 2, when you see the church, once people are cut to the heart of what do we need to do, and they're baptized, the church continues to grow. And I expect to see the same thing with Jerusalem. Once their hearts are cut and they're ready to get working, you look for the nation to grow. That's it. Next week, the rebuilding begins. Chuck will be back next week. Still need an owner for the pickled beets, if anybody's interested in pickled beets. So, all right. Thank you all for joining me this morning. Sing the one.